was a turbulent time, and there was a lot of repression, oppression against the ethnic Koreans. So I spent childhood in North Korea. In 1979, on the 11th of April, I was enlisted to the army. I served for a decade in the army. After that, I was released. I became a civilian. And after that, I was admitted to the Workers' Party, and I served there for about 9 years. In the late 1990s onwards, in order to earn foreign currency, they set up trading companies in the 824 post station. I worked there as part of this program. In the December of 1997, I was released from this job. I was relocated to a trading company in Pyongyang. I was engaged in the trading business. And the time trading in North Korea in the mid-1990s or early 1990s, we traded with Russia and Japan. But afterwards, because of the economic sanctions against North Korea, we only traded mostly with China.
What happened to lead you to be discontented with this life of privilege?
Well, at the time, I was not discontent. But since 1998, I started doing the trading business in China. And I was doing business with Chinese people. And the business was unprofitable. It was difficult to make any sort of profit margin. For instance, if we would, like a frozen fish, like if we provide them like 1 ton, they would give us only $300 per ton of fish, and they would not pay cash. They would give us cash the corns in return, and the corns that they gave us was not edible. It was like a feed for the animals. And so I decided. And then I found out that the fish that we sold to Chinese were sold to Koreans, and they were getting like $1,000 per ton. And so I decided to do business directly with South Koreans, not going through the Chinese. But I was taught in North Korea that we should not come into direct contact with South Korea. But I thought about this, and then I thought it would be better to do business directly with South Koreans. So I was doing trading business with South Koreans, and I came to know South Koreans. And that became, I think, one of the reasons. And I think it was July of 1999. I think it was 9 o'clock at night. I was sleeping at a friend's house, and I was arrested at night. And I was arrested and taken. Well, the person that arrested me was Jeong Soo, who was the head of Boibu in that neighborhood. And there were 5, NSA agents, Boibu agents with the wooden clubs. So as soon as I was in the room, they started beating me. And there were, I remember the names. Hong Jong-an was one of them. And then there was Park Won-soo. He was also with the Boibu. So these people were beating me with the clubs. And they said that I should acknowledge, that I should confess that I'm a spy. But I told them I'm not a spy. But they kept beating me. For 2 weeks, I was beaten with clubs, and they would they had what's called a pigeon torture, where they would hang me upside down. I kept saying that I'm not a spy.
Procedure.
This pigeon torture. So you are cuffed, your hands are handcuffed behind your back, and then they hang you so that you would not be able to stand or sit, and you would look like a pigeon. The pigeons with their chests pushed out. We sort of look like a pigeon.
Saw a picture of this at the Sodamon
네,
prison
그
camp.
그림이 그려져 있습니다.
There's a picture of it, yes.
Has been a feature of earlier regimes in Korea during the colonial period.
아마 제가
I saw this book about the torture, and I understand that that torture was conducted during the colonial times. And in North Korea, the criminals are kept at the detention houses, and the detention houses in North Korea are copied or after the detention houses that were built during the Japanese colonial rule.
Tell us about the torture you received from the Boibu and then your detention at Yodok, because that is where you were ultimately taken.
네, 알겠습니다.
Yes. So, and I was tortured at the detention, houses. The pigeon torture, it's difficult because they beat you with the clubs. My knees, I had a joint surgery on my knees because they would have the clubs behind your knees and that make you squat. And while you're sitting, you're kneeling, they would hit you on your thighs, beat you, kick you on the thighs. And they have to but there are people around there. But with the pigeon torture, there are no people watching you. There are nobody. And you can't stand, you can't sleep. And if you're hanged like that for 3 days, 4 days, you urinate, you defecate, you are totally dehydrated. I think for 3 weeks, I lied that I've never met with South Korean. But they were actually tailing me, in a meeting with the South Koreans. There was a Park Bun-soo and others that had kidnapped a South Korean priest. So these people were tailing me in China, and they had photographs of me meeting with South Koreans. So I could no longer lie. So I told them that I have actually met with South Koreans. Then I have done some trading business with them. But because I lied in the beginning that I've never met with South Koreans, and they said we will not believe any of your lies, they said, and then they started torturing me. There were so many different tortures. The most difficult, most painful torture was the pigeon torture. I received pigeon torture for 10 months, and I was about 75 kilograms before the arrest, but after 10 months, I was down to 36 kilograms. I could not endure this anymore, so I confessed that I was given a spice job from South Korea. So I had given up. And
Spy's job from South Korea?
없습니다.
no, I have not.
Job.
Because it was so painful. I decided it would be better to die, so that's why I confessed. It was so painful.
Confessed.
자백을
So once I confessed, I know there are formal procedures. I think they had a prosecutor from Boibu, and this person asked me and said, "You're not a spy, so you are." And I said, yes, yes, I'm not a spy. This is so unfair. I confessed because it was so painful. So that's what I told the prosecutor. I thought the prosecutor was going to help me. But the prosecutor left, and then the investigator came back in and started hitting me, started assaulting me, hanging me upside down. They had this scenario, that they had worked up. And the next day, the prosecutor came back and said, can you talk honestly? And I said, yes, yes, I'm a spy, that I confessed.
Ultimately, I think you suffered breaking of your fingers. Are they still broken or have they reset?
아니요, 손가락.
My fingers did not break. During the questioning, with pens, they would put the pens between my fingers, so I had a scar, and there was inflammation. So I had to. They did a operation on me, but it's not exactly an operation. But the fingers did not really break, but it was quite painful. So they would have the pens, between my fingers, and they would twist it, to give me maximum pain.
When were you taken to Yodok? Was that after you confessed to being a spy?
자백을 하고
After I made the confession, like 10 days after the confession, they took me someplace. And once I got there, I realized that was the Yodok camp. And it was, I think that was 6th of April 2000. That's when I was sent to Yodok.
Understand that the government of North Korea denies that there are any political camps. But can you describe
한국에 와서 알게 되었습니다.
I learned about that in South Korea. In South Korea, the North Korean government is denying the existence of the political camp. And I went to ICC in the Netherlands to sue Kim Jong Il, and then that's when I learned that North Korean government is in denial of such an existence.
Could you describe exactly where the Yodok camp is for an independent international investigation, if that were permitted access?
예, 있습니다.
Yes, I can. This is a satellite picture, and this is where I was.
And you, with the cursor, you are showing a place numbered 1 in the image. And do you say that that is where you were received when you arrived at Yodok?
아닙니다.
No, no. This is where the Boibu resided. This is actually housing for the Boibu.
감사들이
I'm sorry.
Housing. Number 1 represents the housing. Number 4
Yeah.
and number 13.
4번은
Well, number 4 is a cafeteria. 그럼 이 건물들을 알아보시겠어요?
예?
The detail
예, 다 압니다. 예, 제가
Yes, yes. Because I was there for 3 years. Yes, I know the buildings.
is sufficiently clear that you can identify the buildings as the buildings in the Yodok
예, 예.
encampment.
예.
Yes, yes, I can.
Encampment popularly known as number 15.
제가
I got there in 2000, and there is a facility for the new recruits or the new inmates. And so there was that housing. So they put us there, and the Boibu agents told us there. In the past, this was a revolutionary district, and this was for the political prisoners. They were only holding the inmates for the short time, and this revolutionary district. is, the location's name is Yeodok. So Daesungri was the center of Yeodok. And Mr. Anyok and Kang Chul-hwan exposed this to the international community. So that's why they changed the location. So when I went to Yeodok, the buildings were new. All the buildings were new when I got to Yeodok camp. And so the buildings in Daesungri had moved to Guyongri. So that's the new Yeodok camp that I was moved to.
When you were there, did you see the Reverend Kim Dong-sik?
김동식 목사는
No, I did not meet the reverend there. In Haeryong, I was caught in Haeryong, that's the city. So there was a basement cell at Haeryong police. That's where I saw Reverend Kim.
Before that?
몰랐죠.
No, I did not. Well, at that time, I didn't know he was a reverend. But I thought he was a South Korean with a crutch. And we called, old people abai. That's his dialect of Hamgyong province. He was in the next cell, and I asked him, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from South Korea." So, and then there was another person, Kim Chul. I think he was he came in, and he was in my cell, and he told me who Reverend Kim was and how Reverend Kim came to be abducted to North Korea. And then I came back to South Korea, and I learned that the gentleman that I was talking to in the next cell was Reverend Kim Dong-sik.
Your understanding of his offense?
정확히 저는
I didn't know what his offenses were, but I learned in South Korea that there were people. I have this decision about the people who have helped to abduct, Reverend Kim. And according to this decision paper, he was abducted because he was helping the North Korean defectors. So this plaintiff, in cooperation with the Boibu, abducted Reverend Kim Dong-sik, and then he came to South Korea, and then he was arrested, and in violation of National Security Agency law, he has been sentenced to 10 years. I understand he will be released next year.
What was his actual offense? That he was trying to help people in North Korea leave and go to South Korea. Is that what his offense was?
Actually, I learned about this later, but at the time I did not have any details about Reverend Kim. But later I learned that he helped people to go to Mongolia to come to South Korea. He helped people to come to South Korea, and that's why he was abducted.
When approximately was he abducted?
In the proceedings, it reads year 2000. This proceedings is from the trials of the person who abducted Reverend Kim. I knew this man. I have known him before. He was reported and arrested. He is imprisoned, and this proceeding is based on the confessions of that man.
Proceeding in the Republic of Korea, in South Korea.
예,
Yes, that is correct.
Did the abduction, how was that carried out?
It was not Reverend Kim. They abducted 16 different people in different ways. The dates, the method of abductions are all detailed in this document.
How was Reverend Kim abducted at another time? Was he abducted and taken to the north?
Hold on a second, please. On the 16th of January 2000, around 2 in the afternoon, Reverend Kim was in a restaurant in Yeonji, eating bulgogi. When he stepped out of this restaurant, Kim Chol and there were people in the ambush. There were Han, Chinese Han, outside the restaurant, and he got into a taxi, a Chinese taxi, next to the driver. The driver was a Chinese woman. I am reading exactly as it is written in this proceeding. Park Gu-chun, Kim Song-sam, Nam-su, Bang-mun-il, Chae-yong-chol, and other people jumped at Reverend Kim. They tied him, they pressed him down, they pulled him out of the taxi, put him in a van, a small van. They told the taxi driver to go, and they left the place by a small van. They went via Yenji, tried to force him to send him to North Korea, but it was during the daytime. It was around 2 in the afternoon, so they could not return him to North Korea. Around 3, they handcuffed Reverend Kim. Around 4 p.m. on the same day, via Gillimseong, Kim Nam-soo helped the Reverend walk. They crossed the Tumen River, and on the North Korean side, there was the border guard head, Jeong-soo, and Reverend Kim was passed to this border guard. This is what is written in this proceeding.
Was organizing an escape line, is that correct? That he was helping people who wished to leave North Korea to come to South Korea?
I don't know about the specific details, but once the people who wanted to defect, once they met Reverend Kim, they asked for a place to stay, and I think he was involved in helping them escape North Korea and come to South Korea via Mongolia.
I see. But that didn't happen in your case.
No, that did not happen to me. I did not come here with the help of Reverend Kim. I left North Korea in 2003.
How did you leave North Korea?
After 3 years in Yeodok. I was there with Mr. Kim sitting next to me. We were there for at the same time. After 3 years in the Yeouido camp, I was released. When I was released, I didn't know about the whereabouts of my family or what had happened in the society. I went to where I used to live in North Hamgyong, Cheongjin City. My families had scattered all over the country. I could not find any of them. My house was gone. I had two daughters. My younger daughter was living with my mother-in-law. There was no way that I could live in North Korea. In the past, I thought that I had committed myself. I had done things for the country, but I felt betrayed. So I decided that I was done in North Korea. After I left the camp, within 20 days, I decided to defect. I went to China, through Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. I went through 4 countries. It took me 1 year to go through these countries. In 2004, I arrived in the Republic of Korea.
And looking back, what do you think is the main lesson that you draw from the way you were treated?
In what sense?
Would you feel comfortable to return to North Korea in current conditions? And if not, why not?
Currently, when I left North Korea, I swore that I would never return to that land. I don't know if the regime changes. If the regime changes and if people can live in freedom, I may reconsider, but currently, no, absolutely not. I detest that land. I would not want to go back again.
What is the essential reason that you detest the land?
Once in North Korea, I did a lot of things for the regime. I served in the army for 15 years. In the communication post at the party I worked, and I worked in the trading company and earned exploited money. In 2008, 14th of August, that was when the communication office of the trading company opened. On that day, we earned $700,000 for the regime. So in North Korea, in some ways, I had a status, but I was condemned as a spy. I was put in a political camp. Mr. Kim was there, but we had to go through so many things in the political camp. I think Mr. Kim lost his words when he was trying to give his testimony, but because I sympathized with someone, I was beaten up so bad. I was beaten up so bad that for a week I could not stand up and walk in that camp just because I sympathized. I related to someone. I was punished. If you think about that, my teeth tremble. I have to bite my teeth even at the thought of it. Even if they give me a lot of money, I will not go back to that country.
You came to the Republic of Korea. Were you given a friendly welcome, or did you find prejudice and discrimination against you as a returnee from the North?
Of course, there were there may have been some level of discrimination and prejudice, but I was thinking positively. I did not come here for a friendly welcome, but because I was welcomed. I did not expect, but I was welcomed, so it made things easier, but I don't believe I was discriminated harshly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Young.
Yes, to both Mr. Kim and Mr. Jeong. You eventually came out of the prison camps and returned to society. Is that the case?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, when you returned to society, you met with people that you knew before and maybe new people. Would they recognize that you were different because having gone through the camps and the prison physically and well, primarily physically, would they have known that you had just gotten out of those camps?
Well, in fact, everybody who lived in my district, I think they knew that I was in the camp and that I had been treated badly by the Bowibu. Before I went to this camp, I knew that somebody close to me, people close to me had been there. The people at the higher position, because I was in trading, I knew a lot of people in the higher position. When I came out of the camp, I tried to reach them, but they did not want to see me anymore. And that's why I hated North Korea more. Nobody can survive here. That's what I felt.
Mr. Kim?
네,
When I went to the society, people were surprised because they thought I had died in the camp. But I was released alive, but I did not tell that I was in the prisoner camp, but instead I used the name, the number of the army, and said that I worked there. The village that I lived, people living there did not know very well, but there were surveillance people in my neighborhood who were monitoring me. Well, in general, I talked to the people in the neighborhood, but people thought that I had worked in the army, not did my sentence in the prison camp.
Well, so when you were released, this was notified to you without any information before? This was a sudden notification that you were going to be released?
When you are out of Yodok, the Bowibu agent that is in charge of you transfer you to your neighborhood. The documents are signed in this transferring process, and you are relocated to a new job. If I was in a pretty good position before I went to Yodok, but later I was transferred, relocated to work in this rural village. I would like to add to his comments. In the Yodok camp, The Bowibu agents have no authority releasing the inmates, but you know that you're going to be released 2 months ahead. The leader at Division 7 of Bowibu interviewed you, and this is what he said. You're going to be released in 2 months. Do you believe that you can function well in the society? Yes, of course. You say yes. You say yes, I can perform well. And they make you swear that you are going to function well, and they promise that you will be released in 2 months. After that interview, you can't even sleep because you're waiting for that day. You're waiting for that 2 months to pass by. Exactly after 2 months, you are released. So prior to your release, 2 months prior, you learn that you're going to get out of the place.
And that was also the case with you, Mr. Kim?
I I think some people go through the interview, some don't. As for me, I knew 11 days prior that I was going to be released.
So you were prepared to be released, and you were allowed to gain weight, eat more food, so that you can get back into society without being recognized. Is that?
I don't think you can really call it a prep to return to the society, but if you are able to walk out of the camp physically, it means that you have survived physically. You are in one piece. Otherwise, you're as good as dead. So there's no really prep going on to return to the society. As for clothes, it's really, we always get new people in the camps, and sometimes these newcomers give up their clothes for you to wear when you return to the society.
I'm just curious, Mr. Jeong. You said that you were 75 kilos, and then you came down to 36 exactly. How did you know that?
예, 예. 제,
Before I was arrested in China, in the sauna, I weighed myself. So I knew that I weighed 75 kilograms. After I was arrested, I was also weighed again before we are sent to the when we arrive at the Yodok camp. I was weighed, and that's when I learned I weighed 36 kilograms.
Just another question here. I think this is Mr. Kim. You really wanted to go to South Korea. How how did you know about the conditions in South Korea? Was there any discussions, information?
When I was in North Korea, we were instructed by the government, the regime, that South Korea was very poor. But in China, when I was in the church, I met a lot of reverends, South Korean reverends, and I watched South Korean dramas. And that's how I learned bit by bit by the South Korean society. And the motivation behind coming to South Korea, the impetus came from a South Korean, and so that's how I learned about South Korea.
Thank you. Just one last question, Mr. Kim. You said that the family members are suspicious with each other. Are they required to report on each other's?
We don't actually report each other, but from very at a young age, we are taught not to talk badly about the Kim family. And whenever we are given gifts on special days, we have to be grateful of the Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Il. I think deep inside our hearts, I think we have to keep the bad thoughts about the regime. If we share this with our families verbally, I think my father would have slapped my cheeks. So we have to keep these thoughts inside. After the food crisis occurred and you have troubles in the household, you are tempted to steal food. For example, you would talk to each other about stealing corn from other fields. You can share that much information, but you can really talk about the regime with your family members.
Just one final question, again to both Mr. Jeong and Mr. Kim. If you meet people after you were released and you integrate again, you mix again with society, would you know whether or not other people were or were not in the camps? Would you be able to know that anyone you meet may have been in those camps at some time in their lives or not?
아니요.
No, we could not. So it's difficult to recognize people. So it doesn't really show that you have been in camps. But there are rumors. So there will be, rumors or the stories of people, having received interrogation or questioning from Boibu, or having received, of whether and they've been with the pre-trial board. But appearance-wise, unless it's really difficult to tell whether the people have been in the camp. So appearance-wise, it doesn't show whether a person has been to a camp or not.
Jeong, you have a photographic memory, we are informed. Would you recognize these people, again, the guards and the people who are torturing you and abusing you?
예. 예, 다 기억하고.
Yes, I remember all of them.
예, 이름.
I remember their names. I also remember their ages at the time.
Write them down. Would you be prepared to write them down? And
예, 적어드리겠습니다.
how many were there?
예, 총
When I was arrested, the person who arrested me has passed away. His name is Ji Hyung-soo. Excuse me, Ji Hyung-soo. He at that time was 54. 54 when he arrested me. And there was Hong Jeong-kwan. He was same age. He was born in 1963. Hong Jeong-kwan. And then there was Park Won-soon. He was born in 1969. So that's what I know. So when I was in the camp, there were so-called managers. Yeah. So they are from the Boibu. I knew their last names, but I don't know their names. But so in case of the Boi, except for the one who was responsible for me, his name was Lee Young-nam, because he was responsible for our working group. And I remember the last names, the family names, not the first names.
예, 얼굴은.
Yes, I remember exactly what their faces looked like. And related to North Korean, human rights, I've been working, and so I have been collecting some information on the perpetrators. And my organization has a lot of such information. I brought some of them here with me. And I also brought the warrant for arrest, which is used in North Korea. But if you read this warrant for arrest, they don't have dates. So, they were. I was also arrested with a warrant, without dates, and they have tortured me to make a confessions. That's when they write down the dates on the warrant. So nobody knew that I was arrested, but I learned about this existence of the warrant afterwards, not at the time of my arrest.
You, Mr. Kim, do you remember anyone?
저도요.
Just like Mr. Jung, I know the last names, only the family names of the guards. I don't know their full names.
네, 압니다.
Yes, I do.
Have the South Korean authorities asked you about this?
없습니다.
No, they haven't. The South Korean government, I don't think has even held a conference to talk about the North Korean human rights. There were so many unfair things that I have endured in North Korea. So I have made my organization, and we have urged the South Korean government to do something about the human rights in North Korea, but it seems that no attempt is really being made here.
Is that the same case with you, Mr. Kim?
네.
Yes.
I'll just have one short question. Bearing in mind what you have said about your family relations and generally about your neighborhood and their reactions to your positions, could we conclude that the entire society lives in some kind of fear and paranoia? Is this something that, because we have heard from others as well before, the same kind of testimonies, could we conclude this?
네.
It's just the regime itself. In North Korea, you begin your, your societal life when you're 7 years old, and they teach you how to do a surveillance of others. That's the first thing you're taught. So at least once a week on Saturdays, they do what's called the weekly instructions. And you do some criticizing, but you also criticize others. If you don't criticize others, it's going to be quite tough. You'll be attacked. So every week you should be able to criticize other people. So if you are forced to do that every week since you're 7 years old, you just get accustomed to surveilling and watching others. And in North Korea, the food, the leftovers, you have to really watch what you do with them. For instance, you had meat, and then you had the fats of the meat, and if you throw that away, then your neighbors would report you and say, where would they get the money to buy meat? Because I saw the meat fat. So the North Korean, families of the South, sometimes they get the money from the defectors to South Korea. So if they're really hungry, they would spend the money that has been sent to them from South Korea, and then they would be caught, and they would go through all this hardship. So this surveillance or this inspection, I think this sort of thing is trained, even when the kids are very young.
How do you send money or any help to your families to North Korea? What are the channels?
Well, when I came to South Korea in 2004, it was quite difficult to remit any money to North Korea. But now the remittance speed, well, frankly speaking, It's only 15 minutes. It only takes 15 minutes to send remittance to North Korea. Of course, the procedure, the process is illegal. So the Chinese, the ethnic Koreans, in China, they would come to Korea to work, and then they have route to which to send money to North Korea because they have families in North Korea. So they have this money exchanger. So they will send the money to the account of a money exchanger, and the money exchanger would call a Chinese living in North Korea, and of course there would be commission. The commission is like 30%. So if I sent like 1 million, then about 700,000 won would be given to my family. So I would send this money to this account, and then once the money is there, then the broker in China would call the Chinese in North Korea, and this Chinese in North Korea would, give the money to the family in North Korea. So it takes not much time. It's really quick. So I think 15 minutes is enough, to send money. The latest it's a half an hour, and to get a confirmation call, it only takes about an hour or so.
Regime in the north is now more relaxed vis-a-vis because they need this money, it's coming in because they take such high commissions?
아니죠. 노선에
No, it's not relaxed. So we have the so-called remittance broker. The North Korean government is cracking down on these brokers. And in Wonsan of Gangwon, Gangwon-do, there was a Chinese person living in North Korea. Because he was giving money, he was tortured by the North Korean government, and she had to be institutionalized afterwards because of the torture. So all of that had to be in this money exchange, and sending the money has to be done very secretly.
Just two very short questions. First of all, you mentioned an organization that you are a member of. I don't know what that organization is. Would you tell us what the organization is, Mr. Jeong, and what it does?
예, 저희
My organization is called the Free NK. So we are an organization to free political prisoners. Because the members of my organizations are related to a political prisoner camp or have been inmates at the prison camp. And we believe that the democratization is not taking place in North Korea because of the political prison camps. The political prison camps are object of a fear for North Koreans. So that is why North Koreans do not want to become involved in politics. If you become a political prisoner, your children will not be able to get married. One of the reasons that I've decided to come to Korea is because of my two daughters. Because they would not be able to get married in North Korea because I was political prisoner, because I was what in the North Korean society's eyes a South Korean spy. So that was one of the reasons that I decided to come to South Korea. And so the people in my group are sued. But we're doing all these different activities, but we have nothing to show for, unfortunately. The organization's mission is to disintegrate the political prisons in North Korea.
I know that the North Korean authorities apparently deny the existence of political prisons, but can you identify clearly the political prison that is shown in the image that is before us? And would you tell us what those numbers mean that are associated with that image?
예.
So this is a satellite picture. This is the 여덕군 구운미 서림천. It's a district. Here you see number 1. That's 분주소. That's the housing for the guards. Excuse me, 보위 1. And number 2 is orchard. And it's for the apples. They have peaches. And of course, the inmates are not able to touch them. And if you steal a fruit, then you'll be sent to a solitary confinement. And number 3 is a fence. I think it looks like a fence. It's an electrical wire fence. So the inmates, it's about 2 meters with the electrical barbed wire. So there's electricity that's going on. So when it rains, and then there will be sometimes flashlights or the sparks. And when the insects go nearby, then they would burn. So we know that electricity that's going through the wire. Number 4 is a cafeteria. So we called it command 1 or command 2. So this is a cafeteria for 1 army unit, and number 5 is the where they sleep. The troops sleep. And number 7 is assembly hall. So when they would talk about the ideologies and things like that. And number 8, I think it's a toilet, restrooms. And number 9 is a hospital. And number 10 is a warehouse where they keep the agricultural tools. And number 11 is called what we call 관리위원. 관리위원 actually this is a person who is one of the inmates, but this inmate has been chosen among the inmates to become managers. So that's where that person lives. And number 12 is also a warehouse, and the number 14 is a pig pen. And number 15 is where the goats are kept. Number 5, number 3. Number 3 and 5?
Closest to this camp. What is the town in North Korea that is closest to it?
Well, a town that you may know, the closest to the camp would be Hamhung. Because when I was in the camp, when I left the camp, it took me, the road was really bad, but it took me about 6 hours to get to Hamhung. So it's southern province of Hamgyong province. So Yeodok-gun is part of the South Hamgyong province.
Korea would permit access to its territory, you would be able to give an independent inspection, a very thorough and detailed description of how they could find this camp.
Yes, I can. I can give you the exact direction.
By foot or by transport?
To Hamhung. So once you leave the camp, there's one thing different, from other prisons. Other prisons, they give you a permit that's end of it. The camp, in prison camp, in order to ensure, a secrecy, they give me this new identification that I used to work, as a laborer in the military. Except for the people who are very close to me, everyone would know. Except for my close family, everyone would, think that I used to work for the military. So once I'm released, so this one person from 보위부 would provide me, would provide me transportation vehicle. It's not a passenger car. It's more of a truck.
To get to Hanhu.
예, 6시.
Yes.
Both of you have given a lot of assistance, and you also have made statements to the Secretariat, and we are grateful to you for your help to the United Nations, and we will report on the matters that you have put before us. Thank you very much. You may stand
예,
down.
감사합니다. 예, 감사합니다.
We reconvene the Commission of Inquiry, and we have present Dr. Kim Jong-Il, who is a Senior Fellow at the Korean Rural Economic Institute in the Republic of Korea, and an expert in